with Senator Mosier.
Mike Moser, District 22, it's Platte County and most of Stanton County.
Tom Brandt, District 32, Fillmore Thayer, Jefferson, Saline, and southwestern Lancaster counties.
Bruce Bosselman, District 23, Saunders, Butler, and Colfax counties.
Barry DeKay, District 40, Holt, Knox, Cedar, Antelope, most of Dixon, most of Pierce, or northern part of Pierce County.
Our committee council is Mike Hibble. Carolyn Neville is our committee clerk. And also assisting us are our pages, Delaney and Logan. Delaney is studying political science at UNL, and Logan international business at UNL. This afternoon, we will be hearing two bills, and we'll be taking them up in the order listed outside the room. On the table near the entrance of the room, you will find blue testifier sheets. If you're planning to testify today, please fill one out and hand it to the pages when you come up. This will help us keep an accurate record of the hearing. If you do not wish to testify but would like your record to record your presence at the hearing, please fill out the gold sheet on the table near the entrance. Also, I would like to note the legislature's policies that all letters for the record must be received by the committee by noon the day prior to the hearing. Any handouts submitted by testifiers will also be included as part of the record as exhibits. We would ask if you have any handouts, you please bring 10 copies and give them to the pages. If you need additional copies, the pages will be happy to make those available to you. Understand that senators may come and go during our hearing. This is common and required as they may be presenting bills in another committee. This is how the hearing will run. Testimony for each bill will begin with the introducer's opening statement. After the statement, we will hear from any supporter of the bill, then those in opposition, followed by those who wish to speak in a neutral capacity. The introducer of the bill will be given the opportunity to make closing statements if they wish to do so. We ask that you begin your testimony by giving us your first and last name and please spelling them for the record. We will be using a 5-minute light system today. When you begin your testimony, the light on the table will be green. The yellow light is your 1-minute warning. And when the red light comes on, we ask you to wrap up your final thoughts. I would like to remind everyone, including senators, to turn off or put your phones on vibrate. And with that, we will begin today's hearing with LB 136, which is my bill. And Senator Mosier, I'll give you that. And you can.
Thank you.
That can't be right.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chairman Mosier, and good afternoon, members of the Transportation Telecommunication Committee. For the record, my name is Suzanne Geist, SUZANNEGEIST, and I represent District 25. LB 136 allows for owners of ATVs and UTVs to title their ATV or UTV in any county with the county treasurer. Section 2 and 3 harmonizes the term United States Government Certificate to obtain title for former military vehicles and adds the term to the list of documents that may be submitted with an application of certificate of title for a motor vehicle which has not been previously titled in Nebraska. Section 2 also allows for a person to check the National Motor Vehicle Title Information System or the National Crime Information Service, in addition to the National Crime Information Center, to conduct an identification inspection of a vehicle. Section 4 changes a term from damaged to branded to allow for all brands from out-of-state titles to be carried forward to Nebraska certificates of title. Section 5 allows the director to suspend, revoke, cancel, or refuse to issue or renew a registration if the applicant that is registering an apportioned vehicle has committed a violation of the International Registration Act or the rules or regulations under the Act. Section 6 eliminates outdated and obsolete language relating to restricted commercial driver's license. It also increases the seasonal period of validity for a restricted commercial operator's license from 128 to 210 days. Thank you for your time and attention. Director Lamb will be following me to answer any detailed questions that you have. But in the meantime, if you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer those.
Okay. Committee have any questions for Senator Geist? You must have done a great job.
Yeah, this is riveting stuff, so.
Well, yeah, we were enthralled. Okay, is anyone here to speak in support of this bill?
Good afternoon, Vice Chairman Moser and members of the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee. I'm Rhonda Lamb, RHONDA-LAHM, Director for the Nebraska Department of Motor Vehicles. I'm appearing before you today to offer testimony in support of LB 136. I would like to thank Senator Geist for introducing LB 136 on behalf of the department. The purpose of the bill is to update and harmonize DMV statutes and implement current business practices. Section 1 of the bill allows for ATV and UTV owners to file applications for title with the county treasurer of any county in Nebraska. This harmonizes with current statute, allowing for motor vehicles to be titled in any county. Section 2 allows law enforcement agencies to check the National Motor Vehicle Title Information System or the Nebraska Crime Information Service when conducting an identification inspection of an out-of-state title. The DMV has found both systems provide the same information for law enforcement, but both systems may not be accessible to all law enforcement. The bill does not remove the requirement to conduct a check of the National Crime Information Center. Sections 2 and 3 harmonize the term United States Government Certificate to obtain title with other sections of statute and adds the term to the statutory list of acceptable documents for the issuance of a title. This document is issued by the U.S. military to former military vehicles and allows for former military vehicles to be issued titles in Nebraska without a vehicle inspection, providing efficiencies for the customers. Section 4 changes the term to allow for all brands on an out-of-state certificate of title to be carried forward to Nebraska certificates of title. This will provide for greater customer awareness and protection regarding these types of vehicles, which may be purchased at a later time with a Nebraska certificate of title. Section 5 allows the director of the DMV to suspend, revoke, cancel, or refuse to issue or renew registrations for an applicant who has committed a violation of the International Registration Act. Section 6 outlines provisions beginning January 1st, 2024, increasing the seasonal period of validity of restricted commercial driver's licenses from 180 to 210 days. This change is in conformance with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's rules and benefits the customer, allowing the RCDL holder to have a longer period of time before the document expires. This section also harmonizes and removes various obsolete statutory language. I encourage the advancement of LB 136 to general file. Vice Chairman Moser, at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Okay, committee members, do you have any questions for Senator Bosselman?
Thank you, Vice Chairman Moser, and thank you, Director Lamb. Section 4 branded, that term, could you explain? We've dealt with a lot of titles over the years back and forth, so would that change from damaged branded?
Yeah.
Could you explain what that means?
So right now, the statute just says to put the damaged on there, but branded could be any type of thing. So for example, water damage, if it was in a flood, and that's what we see very commonly. So like say there's floods in Texas and those vehicles have water damage and it has a water brand on it, a water damage brand. But if it comes to Nebraska, right now it just says we mark damaged. We don't specifically say water damaged. And that way a consumer would know that that vehicle had water damage or previously had water damage when they buy it without that brand on there. So the idea is to make this accurate so we don't have consumers that get taken advantage of and purchase a vehicle that could have some significant damage to it that's not visible when they buy it at the time. So
Okay.
that's the purpose of that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Senator Brandt?
Thank you, Vice Chair Moser. Thank you, Director Lamb. Section 5, what is the International Registration Act? Can you explain what this does?
Yeah, thank you. So the International Registration Act is part of the governing rules for registering commercial motor vehicles. So in other words, the big trucks that you see. And so in statute, I already have the authority to suspend, revoke, and cancel if people haven't met the requirements of the International Fuel Tax Agreement, which is the tax as they have to pay, or the Unified Carrier Registration Plan, but this was just an omission and wasn't included. So basically what this says is if people haven't met their obligations under the International Registration Plan and they apply to be renewed, we don't have to renew them. And if after a period of time they don't comply, that we can suspend or revoke their registration credentials and have to return them.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else to speak in support? We should also note that Senator DeBoer and Senator Frederickson have joined us. Anybody here to speak in opposition to this bill? Anybody in the neutral? Senator Geist waves her closing. We got one letter of support and no letters from opponents. That should close our hearing on LB 136, and we'll move on to LB 138, also sponsored by Senator Geist.
Well, thank you, Vice Chairman Mosier, and good afternoon, members of the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee. My name is Suzanne Geist, SUZANNEGEIST, and I represent District 25. LB 138 is an annual update bill governing the federal regulations under which the Nebraska State Patrol and the Nebraska Department of Motor Vehicles operate. This bill updates the statutory references of the most recent version of federal laws and regulations in effect as of January 1st, 2023. Thank you for your time and attention. Again, Director Lamb and Lieutenant Madam, I believe, will be following me with more details about this most recent version of federal laws and regulations. But if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to take those.
Committee members have any questions? I don't believe so. Anybody else to speak in support of this bill? Thank you, Senator.
Good afternoon, Vice Chairman Mosier and members of the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee. I am Rhonda Lamb, RHONDALAHM, Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles. I'm appearing before you today to offer testimony in support of LB 138. I would like to thank Senator Geist for introducing LB 138 on behalf of the DMV and the Nebraska State Patrol. This is a joint update bill introduced annually to keep the DMV and the Nebraska State Patrol consistent with federal laws and regulations administered by both agencies. LB 138 adopts the most recent version of federal laws and regulations in effect as of January 1st, 2023. This includes federal law references applicable to the issuance of commercial driver's licenses, the Unified Carrier Registration Act, the International Registration Plan, the U.S. Patriot Act, rules governing manufactured homes, parking regulations for those with disabilities, and regulations governing low-speed vehicles contained within the federal motor vehicle safety standards. This bill would also retain Nebraska's compliance with federal regulations contained within the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act and ensure the DMV maintains appropriate standards for informal dispute settlement procedures for automobile warranties. Section 14 of the bill adds specific reference to federal regulations regarding commercial driver's license issuance regarding the authority to allow the department to comply with the federal drug and alcohol clearinghouse requirements. The clearinghouse will be effective in suspending CDLs from drivers that abuse alcohol and drugs. Section 15 extends the period of issuance of a commercial learner's permit from 180 days to 1 year from the date of issuance and eliminates the 180-day renewal period. Section 17 harmonizes and updates the federal disqualification requirements for CDL holders who use any motor vehicle in the commission of a felony involving the manufacturing, distributing, or dispensing of a controlled substance. Section 18 requires notification to a non-residence license issuing authority of any conviction for violations of state and local laws committed in commercial or non-commercial motor vehicles operated in Nebraska within 10 days of the date of conviction. The bill also harmonizes and removes various obsolete statutory language. Maintaining alignment between federal regulations, state statutes, and operational activities ensures Nebraska remains compliant with federal requirements to receive federal highway funds. I encourage the advancement of LB 138 to general file. And Vice Chairman Moiser, at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Any questions for Director Lund? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to speak in support?
Vice Chairman Moser and members of the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee, my name is Mike, M-I-K-E, Matum, M-A-Y-T-U-M. I'm a lieutenant assigned to the Carrier Enforcement Division, and I am here today on behalf of the Nebraska State Patrol to testify in support of LB 138. When the United States Congress passed the Motor Carrier Safety Act, emphasis was placed on states' adoption of uniform safety measures, with the ultimate goal being a reduction in the number of commercial motor vehicle crashes. In order for the state of Nebraska to remain consistent and compliant with these federal requirements, it is necessary to update our commercial vehicle safety regulations annually. This legislation will enable the Nebraska State Patrol to continue enforcing updated federal motor carrier safety regulations and federal hazardous materials regulations. Every day, our troopers strive to make our highways safe. In fiscal year 2022, the Nebraska State Patrol conducted 28,942 roadside inspections, identifying 14,919 violations of driver requirements and requiring that 2,182 inspected drivers be placed out of service. In addition, 7,697 vehicle inspections were conducted, with an average of 2.23 violations discovered per vehicle, and 3,685 vehicles being placed out of service due to serious defects. The roadside inspection program has enabled the state to establish clear guidelines for commercial vehicle operators while ensuring a Nebraska State Patrol presence to assist in the correction of operators who have vehicle or driver defects. These guidelines create a significant deterrent effect. In addition to our enforcement efforts, public education is a valuable tool the agency uses to improve highway safety. In fiscal year 2022, the Carrier Enforcement Division of the Nebraska State Patrol conducted 64 public education and training events across the state directed at commercial motor vehicle owners and operators in a safe and friendly format. In addition, the Nebraska State Patrol website provides resources to help answer questions about driver requirements, transportation of hazardous materials, and additional information that is pertinent to commercial motor vehicle owners, operators, and the public. I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of this bill, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any questions? Oh, yes, Senator DeKay.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Moser. You said you had 2,182 inspected drivers placed out of service. Are they permanently out of service, or are they on probation, or how does that work?
The out of service is based on the type of violation that's discovered. So in some cases, it would be a matter of hours for something where they have not followed the hours of service rules correctly. And it can be longer if it's something related to a license revocation or something like that. They would be placed out of service until they were able to correct that issue with their driver's license.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Brandt.
Thank you, Vice Chair Moser. Thank you, Lieutenant. Is this just commercial vehicles, or when that 3/4 ton flatbed pickup's going down the road and something's loose on the bed is included in these numbers also?
This is strictly commercial motor vehicles that are regulated under the federal motor carrier safety regulations. So it would not include the 3/4 ton truck unless it met certain requirements. Based on what you described, it probably wouldn't apply to that vehicle.
So no farm plated vehicles would be included in these numbers?
Generally, that's correct, although there are farm vehicles that travel across state lines are subject to certain parts of the requirements. I would have to get back to you if there were any that were specifically identified in the numbers that I quoted today, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, other questions? I just have one. It looks like about half of the vehicles you pull over have serious defects and are placed out of service.
Yes, sir.
That's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So what would be like brakes out of adjustment or air hoses not functioning or?
Very typical types of violations we would find would be brakes. A very common one is tires. We have new equipment that was made available to us through a grant a few years ago that we're using at our interstate sites currently that identify flat tires. And a large number of these vehicles actually come into the scales with flat tires, and that's a violation that requires them to have that fixed, replace the out of service for that.
One tire of the tandem would have no air in it, basically?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Well, that's, wow. What about the carbon treatment that they run the exhaust through? I don't know what they call that. Diesel something.
Diesel
fluid.
exhaust systems, yes, sir.
Are those required to be in service in order to pass inspection?
That's not part of our inspection criteria, no. Most companies keep them up for other states that make those requirements, but we are merely guided by the federal regulations pertaining to all commercial motor vehicles across the nation, and the diesel particulate systems are not included in that inspection.
Okay, well, thank you. Any further questions? Senator Brandt?
A quick follow-up question. Does Nebraska just follow the federal regulations?
The update bill that we're talking about today refers specifically to those regulations, but these commercial motor vehicles are also subject to the state laws, and we use those as appropriate as
So
well.
we have some unique state laws that are different than the federal.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Senator DK?
Yes, the DEF fluid that he was talking about, that's basically used on what year trucks and newer, 2018?
I've seen it on vehicles older than that, but I'm not familiar when the regulations started to require it of manufacturers. I'd be happy to get that information if you would like it, sir.
Well, I guess the point being a little bit, there's a lot of trucks out there that are older that aren't required to
They're
have
exempt
those
from
DEF
it.
standards on their trucks at this time.
Sure. Senator Brandt?
Okay, that jogged my memory. If I said the term glider to you, do you know what I would be talking about?
I have familiarity with that term in the commercial motor vehicle realm. Yes, sir.
Could you explain to the committee what a glider is and what Nebraska law says about gliders?
The glider specifically refers to what I'll refer to as the shell of a semi or a large truck. It doesn't have any motor or drivetrain in it. And the industry, what they will do is they will take viable motors and transmissions, driveline systems out of older units and put them in the glider kits. Specifically to the regulations that we're talking about today, that has an influence on the applicability of the electronic logging devices in these trucks. Again, I probably has something to do with the emission standards as well, but that's out of the realm of what I have any knowledge in, sir.
All right, okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you very much for your testimony. Anybody else to speak in support? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? In opposition? Anyone here to speak in the neutral? Okay, thank you. Senator Geist, would you like to close? Senator waves for closing. We received no letters on this bill, so that will conclude our hearing for today. Thank you.